I'm a gooner. Oh, I love you!
Kyle Saka! It's Rice again!
You know, I don't know if we're going to win the league. I don't know if we're going to win the Champions League or the Club World Cup or how many games we're going to win, any of that. There's a lot I don't know. But what I do know is that we can always dunk on Tottenham Hotspur in the transfer market. This is not that kind of gooner, and we are coming to you on a very, very momentous day after probably the biggest transfer we've seen in years. That's right, Arsenal, if you somehow have not heard, have gone and snatched Eberechi Eze out of the grubby little hands of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club in the dying moments, just as it looked like they were going to sign him and he was going to be forced to play in their toilet bowl 19 games every league season. We came in at the midnight hour, grabbed him in a moment of ours, and we've really pulled Spurs' pants down in a big way. Honestly, it reminds me, my best friend in high school used to drive a 2012 Honda Odyssey. And by the time we were in college, this thing's trunk door was not opening properly. And he would do this thing where he'd hit the button on the keys and it wouldn't open. He'd walk up behind the car and try to hit the button on the actual door and it wouldn't open. And he would turn to me and he would say, "It's only going to work when I've fully given up on it." And he would walk away. And every single time he started walking away, the door would open. And that's how I feel about Eze. I had given up on this happening. I had really moved on to life without him, and then we made it happen. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Trossard and Havertz unfortunately getting injured, and we might do a brief outlook on how we think the season is going to go based on everything that's happened the last day or so. And to do that with me is John, who you can follow at 305cast on Twitter. John, how are you doing? Oh, John, I think you're on mute.
I was saying thank you for having me on again, and it's good to be here. And then what I was saying was it's interesting that you mentioned that about your friend's car and how it seems like every time he walked away, that's when it worked out. And I feel like if you're a Spurs fan, it's the exact opposite. It's like every time they try to get to the car, it doesn't work, and then when they try to walk away, it doesn't matter because it's just going somewhere else. It's like you know what it's like? It's like if you go to your car and then it automatically drives to your neighbor's house every day by itself. that's and decides that it would rather be with your neighbor instead. So I don't know. This analogy got away from me, but point is, super happy with the signing. It was just the day before the news broke. I was texting in the group chat and I was like, "It's a no-brainer. Get him. Get this player. Like, it's a no-brainer." Even without the Kai injury, I was just saying, I was looking at our squad depth. I was looking at the fact that really, besides Gyökeres, we didn't really add another number. We changed like the quality of the players that we have in different depth positions, but in terms of the actual number, specifically in attack, we were really, really lacking, I thought, and I liked the upgrades, I do, but I thought we needed something else. And for a long time, EZE has been a player that is just lighting up the Premier League, and he's just such a fantastic talent and it's like this aspect of it. It's like, he's coming home. I think that's a big part of this whole thing. It feels like he's coming home. It's this amazing narrative that's going on, and then you have the Spurs thing. It's just such a beautiful, like, we don't get these transfer like drama stuff in our favor very often. We had like the Ozil deadline day thing. Like, obviously Rice was kind of a nice one, but there wasn't really much drama going on there too much. I think Ozil was like the last one, but this is like Sol Campbell levels of
Yeah.
Amazing transfer summer story. So besides the actual transfer itself, the story behind it is just fantastic, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great story, and it's just one of the many things about this transfer that are so exciting. And on that note, Drew, how are you feeling about our purchase of a 2012 Honda Odyssey?
I feel like he's better than a Honda Odyssey. I hope anyway, or else we're gonna be really upset and we overpaid. I feel good about it, and again, it's good to be back with you guys on another podcast. I was in a meeting with a client when I saw on my phone the alert from Ornstein, and I had to mute my entire reaction of that entire client meeting, so I had kind of a muted initial response to it. But I kind of feel like he's a player who all of us in this podcast and most Arsenal fans really wanted across the entirety of the summer window, regardless of what was to happen. Seeing if he could work at left wing, conversations about, from some sections, not all of us, but conversations about should he come in to replace Ødegaard, and I hate that kind of talking point, but it was one. Questions of if, you play him and Ødegaard together with one of Rice and Zubimendi, at the 6. So we were already talking about those kind of permutations a month and a half ago, or whatever it was. So to see it come into fruition, the timing of it all, the story behind his own footballing journey, the fact that we absolutely rinsed Spurs in the process, and then he willingly missed out on Crystal Palace's Europa League conference qualifying match this evening so he could expedite his medical. All of those things, when you kind of package them together, it just was another reminder that, good players still want to come to Arsenal, which is big. I think fans want to have that kind of tangible touch point about where this project is going. That's something we can't say, maybe 3 years ago. So I think in isolation and like the broader context of the summer window, I think it's like the perfect way to end the summer window. I don't think we'll do much else. I'd be baffled. We talked about it in the chat yesterday. I'd be shocked now if we went out and got, another big signing, unless we sold incredibly well in the next 8 days, looking at the calendar or whatever. If we don't, I still think we can confidently say that we've done more than enough to, at the very least, be in and around the title race conversation again. And that's kind of, if this is the best foot forward we can place, I'm happy with it. I really don't have much criticism for the club apart from wouldn't it be better at selling, but that's a whole other conversation, not about this podcast. And I think we might let John lead that podcast because he'll have lots to say for a good 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but broadly, I feel like, the perfect way to end it was to, again, get winning over Spurs as well. And he's a player who we all really wanted to see at the club. He brings a lot of X-factor qualities we didn't have, and in some kind of, what's the term I'm looking for? Excess, I guess. We don't have a lot of game-breaking players, so yeah, I'm really happy with it. I'm also just very tired today, so I'm a little bit muted in my reactions, but yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled with this piece of business in particular. I was happy with Gyökeres, but I think EZE is slightly more exciting for all the contextualization pieces of it. Surrounding the deal, I think it's a little bit more. So yeah, I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, I just want to say to the listeners, to the viewers, I said a bunch of things on the last pod about why I can live with us not signing EZE. I just want to say that was all bullshit. that was all copium. I don't think Max Dowman's gonna run off just because we signed to EZE. I don't think Waneri's worried. I was just trying to make myself feel better about the whole thing. And I'm very glad I'm not in a position to have to do that anymore. John, by the way, in 10 days we'll regroup, and if we haven't made it, if we haven't drastically improved in terms of sales, we're just gonna let you go.
Yeah.
In terms of
I
just
figured,
say what's on your mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm almost ready to do that right now. Even I'm gonna not, because this is a celebration right now of an amazing transfer, a historic, I think, transfer window that we've had. I think it's one of the best that we've had since I've supported in a long time. There's been great moments here and there, but this is one of the best transfer windows I've seen us do, and it's kind of amazing. And he's such an amazing, like I said, with Gyökeres is one of them. Zubimendi, all of them. Even Kepa's looking amazing right now. I posted that B squad, like the kind of like alternative squad that we had, and that squad. You look at like Martinelli, Trossard, Norgard, Marino,
Madueke at right
Igor,
wing.
Madueke, and Timber or White, whichever way you want to look at it. And then Kepa. Like it's just that squad could challenge for the top 6. I'm very confident for it of it, and it's kind of amazing to have that amount. That's the quality of depth that we're talking about. I think last season, even though we were a little light, according to Arteta at least, I think we had some depth options that just didn't pull through. I mean, Sterling is a prime example of that. But now it feels at least like we've made progress there. So I can't complain. And I'm looking at some of these stats for EZE. It's just, they're amazing. I'm sure we can get into it later, but I'm looking at his 24, 20, 25 stats per 90, okay? And if someone's gone and compared it to like different players in Arsenal just to kind of see how they line up. So in terms of shots, this is the kind of player that we're getting, okay? 3.58 per 90 versus Saka's 3.48. So very comparable, edges him a little bit in the shots department. So one thing that I think we lacked on the left was creating chances, specifically shots. And I think that assuming that he ends up playing on the left, and I guess we could talk about that, I'm gonna operate under the assumption that he will, that we have someone who is just as willing to take a shot off on the left. All right, that's what that tells me. Now, shots outside of the box, our highest player was Odegaard with 0.93. EZE is 1.97 per 90 outside the box.
Well, just against Chelsea last weekend, like I think he took at least 3 from outside the box.
Or look at like the FA Cup final against City. Like what a goal, So I mean, this guy is an amazing, amazing player, and I think that we've when you have teams that are sitting and packing the box like that, having a player that's willing to go and just let one rip and possibly score one. I mean, we've been asking for players to do that. Odegaard does it to an extent. I think Trossard or Rice has a shot outside the box, but having a player that actually can do that is very important. Shots from fast breaks. All right, EZE 0.28, Saka 0.26. Dribbles completed 2.32, Saka 2.13. Chances created, EZE 2.01, Saka 3.01. But remember, Saka also takes our corners. So that's not to take anything away from Saka. He's an amazing chance creator, but I think that it's probably a little bit more comparable. Through balls, EZE 0.38, Odegaard 0.97. But I think that's one of Odegaard. He's elite, in that regard. He's at least doing 1 through ball per 90. And then goal involvements, EZE 0.55 and Saka 0.83. So if he decides to play on the left and he can replicate that, we are going to finally have that threat on the left that balances out the front 3 in attack, I think. And that's something we have been crying out for a long time, because you could just see, and there was always excuses for why it didn't happen on the left, right? Okay, we lost Xhaka, we didn't have that ball carrier, we didn't have Lewis Skelly and Zinchenko and whoever's on the left likes to come inside and leave Martinelli isolated, but like now hopefully we're going to see someone who's equally a threat on the left as Saka is on the right, and maybe finally get some defenders off Saka to see what he can actually do in a season, which is a scary thought as well.
So I think also kind of like moving with that, I want to stay with like the stats conversation real fast. And someone posted a really niche stat this morning when I couldn't sleep. I spotted it at like 5 a.m. But I think it's relevant because, so if we add EZE into the mix, the stat is, shots plus key passes per 100 touches, which is roughly every 2 appearances. We have 3 of the top 5 players in the Premier League that have that stat. It's Saka, Madueke, and EZE. So I think that shows you is just there's going to be, and I think I'll say it again, and I think we saw little spurts of it against United where we'll have to tweak the system to get the best out of not just Odegaard, but also kind of EZE as well. Because a lot of, like John said, a lot of EZE's best moments are when he'll pull up from like just outside the box to either shoot or he's not afraid to cut in, but then look to slip somebody through, lay somebody off quite well. And I think that meshes well with what we saw from Calafiore against United, with him trying to always get a forward overlap as well. So I think if you connect those two pieces on the left, that gives it much better balance in terms of the right. And also, I agree with John. We've been missing players who aren't afraid to ask different attacking questions, and we had that with Granit Xhaka a lot. He was not afraid to shoot from like 30 yards out. Whether if it was accurate or not is irrelevant, because you want to, as I said before, you want to give opposition defenders something else to think about when they're compacted.
Yeah.
They see you start shooting from further out, and you start testing the keeper reliably from there, they have to react to it. It's no different than, like, in, say, basketball, where if you're packed in like a 3-2 or whatever, and you start pulling up from threes or hitting threes, you don't have to defend that shot, which then opens up more space in the paint for whoever your big man is, right? Hockey, same thing. If you're in the slot shooting a lot and they're leaving you wide open, you have to respond to that threat, which then opens down low for whoever is in front of the net. So it's a very, very similar concepts across multiple sports, where you cannot just be easy. When you have multiple attacking threats in the final third, you become harder to defend against.
And now, when that happens and defense have to come up to watch out for EZE outside the box, who does it leave space for?
Right. Gyökeres.
Yeah.
That's what you want in the first place. Right. And so I think that's one of the key things about City as well, where City love to dominate the ball, but City will also, they had players like De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva and now Tiana Flanders, who will come in and shoot from outside the box, which then means when you react to that,
Sharky.
Sharky, which gives your creative players just enough room to slip in your striker, which is why Haaland often gets slipped into the box from like 25 yards out, because players will step up to react to that threat. And if you give an accurate enough diagonal ball into the box, your striker can run onto it first time finish in the box, which suits Gyökeres to a T. So yeah, I agree. You know, I would probably lean on the side of the fact that I don't think we're just going to start dropping Declan Rice. I think he wasn't good against United. We can all agree with that. But that's such an anomaly performance from him. It would beg belief to suggest that he would be dropped and Eze slots in. I think, you know, I do think we'll probably see Eze starting on the left more often than we realize, unless we go out and sign a left winger capable of actually being an upgrade on Martinelli. I just don't see it there, you know. And we had recent links to Per L'Equipe again with Malik Fofana, which is interesting because I don't think he's good enough to come into the 11 yet. However, I do think he would be in maybe 12 to 24 months, which then falls in line with, you know, the thought that we might move Martinelli on maybe after this season, right? So if you get in that younger player now, bet him in, then you have Martinelli's ready-made replacement already at the club. Then you have to worry about selling him later on, but that's another question. But I just feel like now we have so many different attacking combinations and questions that we can ask. I think it fleshes out what we need to go on and actually put like the final accent mark on challenging for the title. So that's probably why I'm most excited about the deal for sure.
Yeah, excuse me. And one thing about that stat that you mentioned I want to highlight is the other two players in that top five who aren't Arsenal players, Mohamed Salah and Cole Palmer.
Yep.
So this isn't like a niche stat that like
it's
is
niche,
irrelevant.
but it's valuable.
Exactly. It's niche, but like, you know, this is something that applies to the best attacking players in the Premier League. So to have three of those top five guys is really exciting. And I agree. I think Ez is going to play left wing primarily, just because I think that's kind of the area of the pitch where we needed the upgrade. But, you know, I think that's going to result in Calafiori overlapping, and Rice will be able to kind of, you know, box crash or maybe sit deeper. I think he'll be able to adjust to that too. So, it's really exciting. Honestly, I think this is as perfect a signing as you could have gotten for Arsenal at the left wing position, where you have a guy coming in his prime. He is a Premier League veteran. He's an excellent player, Arsenal fan, you know, former academy player. So the guy's going to play his heart out every week with the cannon on his chest, which I think at this level, again, this is a soft factor, but at this level, I do think that makes a difference. And, you know, he just, like you guys have already mentioned, like he does things that no one else on this team is able to do, which is, you know, play the through balls, play the decisive passes, cut in and shoot, take very accurate shots from outside the box. I think in transition, he's going to be, you know, an absolute upgrade, where he's not going to be making these weird passes and he's not going to be making bad decisions. He'll play people, you know, in at the right time. He'll play that early ball to Gyökeres if he's, you know, making a march on goal. So it's just really exciting. And Also, I think the thing for me that's the most encouraging about it is I think back to January, right? And we had all these injuries. Saka was out, Jesus was out, Havertz was on his last legs. Martinelli would go on to also be out for a month shortly after the window closed. And we were crying out for a striker and we didn't act. And, some people might say that proved to be the correct choice in the long run. I think there's an argument to be made that cost us, at a better chance at challenging for the Premier League or the Champions League. So when Havertz went down with his knee injury, which, we'll get to later in the pod, I was prepared for us just to kind of let that go and, enter the rest of the season with the business that we'd done up until this point and, no reaction to the Havertz injury. So to see us, make what I think is a very ambitious statement of intent where we go out and we drop £68 million, on a player who could really improve us, who injects a huge amount of quality into the team, and we do so at the expense of one of our most bitter rivals. I think that's a big club move to make. And it's just encouraging to see the club go out there and make sure that we're not going to be lacking the quality that we need to challenge for silverware this year. So, it's just such an encouraging move on that front. And I also think it kind of improves the story and the vibes around the season. Yeah, doesn't it feel
it does.
Like a weight has come off of everyone's chest? Like I think as long as we play really good football this season, I think a lot of people are willing to let go a little bit of this, first place or bust expectation that they have. Maybe that's just me being naive. Maybe,
I think it's a bit of both.
Maybe in a week and a half, people will be right back to it. But I think right now, look, 3 days ago, it felt like the world was ending and we just wanted Old Trafford. You know what I mean? And, people were talking about how badly we played. They're saying we're going to lose at Anfield and all this stuff. And just, it's changed where everyone's just so happy to have this player that everyone wanted. So I do think it at least makes the club a little bit more sympathetic in the eyes of their detractors. But
it depends how the season plays out, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like if we go down to the wire again, and at the end of the day, it is the Premier League. It's the hardest league in the world to win. So there is some leeway there. But I can't give so much credit to Arsenal Twitter or football Twitter for I can't. Exactly what's going to end up happening at the end of the day, unfortunately. But I think I agree with you. It's a little bit of both, right? Probably a little naivety, but it's not unfounded. I think it's a reasonable basis because this is a very exciting player, and I'll tell you, it reminds me of when we signed Alexis. In many ways, I think you had all these pieces together. You had at the time, you had Ramsey, you had Giroud, and Ozil at that point, and you had this one player who just came in, and it was just all flair. From his first time he touched the ball, it was all flair, but not just for the sake of it. It was quality as well. And he offered something that nobody else did on the team, and it completely changed the way that we played in many. He had his own frustrations. I think maybe he lost the ball a lot more than we'd want him to. But in terms of a player that offered something that no one else on the team really had, maybe Ramsey before his injury, and even then not in the same level. That's what we're seeing here. So in terms of good faith or that we have in the team, and maybe a little bit of leeway that they get. I think the kind of football that we're going to start seeing is exactly the kind, I'm hoping, touch wood, is exactly the kind that the fans have been wanting to see. This attack, this last piece of the puzzle on that left-hand side to give a little bit of quality, because now it's not just Odegaard combining with Saka on the right. Now you have Gyökeres combining with Rice and EZE on the left. This is a complete attack now, potentially. We'll see how they end up playing it out, but that's what at least the anticipation and the thought process is. And then you made a good point about about different depth options and rotational options. We're talking about him playing on the left, but he's a viable alternative to Odegaard, which we did not have. Like Nwaneri, I love Nwaneri, but Odegaard got injured last season, and we struggled without him. Nwaneri came in, he did okay, but there's very little room for error this season for all the reasons we discussed and that you were concerned about with respect to the fans getting on the team, even if they didn't succeed. And to put that all on him, I didn't think was fair. I don't think it was going to be reasonable to put all of that, assuming Odegaard or someone got injured. You either put Marino there. We talked about like Havertz there, briefly. Not ideal situations. But here we have a situation where, okay, Odegaard gets injured. Fine. Eze goes into that 10 position. Martinelli goes out left, or Trossard goes out left, whatever. And you don't have much of a drop. And in fact, now you may have something else that teams have to defend against, and it could even be a benefit to us in some cases, because now it's a different approach. Everyone kind of says, they kind of got the sense of how Arsenal are going to attack last season and the season before, and eventually teams kind of knew one way or another the best way to set up against us. It didn't always work, but they kind of knew what to do. And I think with a player like Eze, even whether he's on the left or at the 10 position, you don't get that anymore. You don't get that ability to predict how we're going to come at you. I think. Let's see how that goes, but that's my prediction at least.
First of all, my camera is doing that weird stuff I talked about, so I apologize. I'll try to fix it. What I would say is also, I feel like the deal is, I feel it's almost like akin to when Mesut Ozil came on deadline day. And the reason why is because, and I also agree with, I think when we got Alexis, there was still some measure of, is this smart because of how his Barca tenure ended, right? Like, it was kind of on a downtrodden, questions of if he could, rediscover his form. But with Mesut Ozil, there was never a bad word said about him at any point from when he was at Werder Bremen and then with Real Madrid. And then it was such a unifying moment. And also I remember his debut against Sunderland when he got that assist for Giroud's goal, how the away fans were like that anticipation of seeing such a key signing actually perform from the first appearance. I feel like that's going to be very similar to how we view Eze, who I don't think he's going to play against Leeds. It doesn't look like it's going to happen in his medicals tomorrow. I think he'll just be unveiled Saturday. And they'll get him prepped for Liverpool, which is the big thing. So it'll be kind of similar, his first appearance for the club, away from home, against a title rival. There's going to be that added expectations from fans in the best of ways. And I think that's why I agree with Sham in part that I do think a lot of fans will give some measure of leniency towards the club. But at the same time, I've also seen plenty of people, both fans and journalists, already say, now Arsenal have no excuse. Now they have to win the title. I'm like, well, you don't have to win anything. It's not just that easy. If City and Liverpool didn't exist, I would then say we have to win the title. It's not like and I hate to kind of rag on the league I love the most, but this isn't the Bundesliga, right? It's also not Ligue 1 where PSG and Bayern are basically champions-elect before a ball is kicked, rightfully so, because they're so far ahead of the competition, both in financial terms and quality and depth, that you expect them to win the league. And also in Spain, you expect one of Barcelona or Real Madrid to win the league, right? When Atleti does it, it's almost kind of like a shock. And even they're not a bad club, but they're still far behind in most respects. But here, we don't have excuses to not perform, but we can't just magically expect City and Liverpool to have off seasons as well. So I do think there are going to be some sections that are going to put even more pressure on us now because we got Eze. And say, for example, if we went out and then got Rodrigo, that would be even worse, right? And then that'll be people's excuse to say, well, we have all these pieces, you didn't win the league, now there's no excuses now Arteta has to go. I feel like it can go one of both ways. I feel like there can be some sympathy, but also there will be some fans to find some sort of toxic spin about it, because that's what social media is all about these days, right? So we have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, but overall, I agree with you guys both, in particular what John said regarding what we can expect, the excitement around it, the options that we have with it. But for me, I almost feel like and I kind of mentioned it in the chat, but I feel like one of the big stories for me is, I think so much excitement about the move is also because of the connectivity that Arsenal have as a community club. right, as a culture club. The connection to the black community, in particular in London, which EZE is obviously a part of, which Saka is obviously a part of. Reece Nelson was a part of before that. Well, Neri is a part of it. Maslow Scully is a part of it. And I think that connector to a broader section of the fan base as well, both people who live in the UK and people outside of the UK, I think that also will be a good plus positive point for the season too. And that's something that I personally am looking forward to quite a bit as someone who is, I don't know if people are aware, is black. So, yeah, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's I think the Özil comparison is pretty apt because that's probably the last time, or that's the last transfer that we made that I think the fan base was unified on in that moment, where everyone's like, okay, like that's the guy that we.
Rice was pretty unified. Well, no, that's not true.
No, because people
That's
spoke
not
against
true.
the price. It was the price.
No. Then it was the price. You're right. Rice wasn't. Maybe.
Yeah, some people hated the Rice price.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was Ozil was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Raya was, why are you getting a second goalkeeper? Ramsdale's fine, so there was a Raya chat.
I'm thinking like Aubameyang. I'm trying to remember what it was like around Aubameyang. That seemed everyone.
Just justifiable his attitude, which showed up later on.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah, I think you're right.
I even with Aubameyang, I feel like people were kind of complaining that we just signed Lacazette 6 months earlier, and now we were going back in for another striker. I personally was pretty excited about it because I always liked Aubameyang. But yeah, I don't think there's like much more for me to say in terms of just what a great signing it is. I guess the one thing I do want to add is, and John, you kind of hinted at this earlier, this really opens up the attack for us because I think that front three of Saka, Gyökeres, and EZE, that demands attention at every point of that front three. It's not if you still want to double team Saka when you have EZE and Gyökeres free on the other side of the pitch, you do so at your own risk, because that ball can be funneled right over to EZE and he can find Gyökeres, or EZE can create a goal scoring opportunity for himself, and people are just in a world of trouble. So I actually am looking forward to the match at Anfield now, especially after hearing that Jeremy Frimpong is going to be out, because what's the name of that kid who's the backup now? Connor Bradley, right? So I think it's going to be Connor Bradley up against EZE, and I like EZE's odds of being able to deal with that. And I've thought for a little while now that our matchup against Liverpool this season actually is not as unkind as some people may feel. So yeah, it's going to be such a fun signing, and kind of the human element of that as well, right? With EZE being a former Arsenal player, with Drew, like you said, with EZE being kind of part of the black community among Arsenal fans and among Londoners. Just so much about him creates this human element and this story that we want to root for, and that's kind of the point of football in a way. That's kind of the point of sports, right? For these stories, these narratives that we want to follow and watch bloom into satisfying conclusions. And now you're watching a guy who's successfully completed a homecoming he's been dreaming of for 14 years, and he's arrived back at his club that he's been a fan of his whole life, with an opportunity to bring one of the big trophies home to them. So it just adds that much more emotional investment into what's already going to be a really exciting and nerve-wracking season. So yeah, man, I'm just so excited about it.
I have a question for you, Sham. A lot of people are saying that this is the final piece in Arteta's kind of plan, to alter the way that we play and to kind of push us into this next level. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Final piece this year, or like overall? So,
and kind of here's the logic that I've seen kind of bounded around and from various places, and I've kind of collated it. But so remember, we all started off just completely leaking goals. We had like our defense was just when Arteta took over, it was just shambles, right?
Yeah.
So we really started with making ourselves harder to beat defensively, right? We really tried to shore up the defense specifically with our back line and then how they operated. Then we started kind of working our way through the spine of the team, all right? Then eventually you move on, you see like Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko come in. Now all of a sudden the attack becomes a much more potent and fluid and dynamic. And now possession, we start winning the ball up higher. We start pressing teams into their own half easier with players like Odegaard and Saka winning the ball so high up the pitch before it even gets to our own half. We start doing that thing that Arteta likes to do, to start making a player that other teams play in their own half. And that's what we're really good at. But as time goes on, our teams start figuring that out. We lose this kind of spark in the attack. It's harder for us to convert. People just start double teaming Saka. Martinelli is a little bit too one-dimensional to go forward and take that whole left-hand side on his own. And teams end up just sitting and packing the box in the yard box. So we start doing that, little horseshoe of death thing all the time. All right, and we have a very difficult time breaking down that kind of a block. And it seems like what we need now is fluidity in the attack, such that there is a balance among the entire front three. So we needed a prolific goal scorer that could put away chances that people like Rice and Saka and Odegaard were making, someone to be on the end of it, and we got that in Gyökeres. And now this balance on the left we kind of alluded to earlier with EZE on the left, assuming that's where he's going to play.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see this season is, I think from season to season, Arteta responds to the biggest weakness his side showed in a previous season. And I think the biggest weakness last season was just kind of how sterile we were attacking wise, and what you've seen over the course of this window is directness, right? Drew and I already mentioned the kind of like the direct attacking contributions stat, and we've already had one of the top five. Then we went and added two of the other top five in Madueke and EZE, and so Madueke and Gyökeres kind of represent two players who can make those runs in behind the defense. And it really just kind of is up to players like Odegaard and Saka and Zubimendi to kind of create those chances for them and play those early balls. And now what we've done here is we've added EZE, who not only figures into that, but is also another player who will create those direct attacks on goal himself. Mm-hmm. And, he'll generate shots from outside the box. Mm-hmm. He'll, I think he's going to be the key to us dealing with low blocks. And, we're just going to play more directly. We're going to play kind of with more intent. Hopefully we'll be better on the counter. I think we'll be more willing to play centrally and through the block instead of just funneling out wide and relying solely on crosses and cutbacks. I think there's going to be more ingenuity about the way we attack. And at the same time, obviously, we're going to sacrifice a little bit in terms of our defensive solidity. I think we'll let in a few more goals this season in the league than we did last season. But, you still have Timber and Saliba and Gabriel and Calafiori and Declan Rice and Zubimendi's no slouch either, and you've got Raya in goal. Like those are still some of the best defensive players in the world. So, if you want to swap out Lewis Skelly for a Calafiori and have that additional fluidity, right? If you want to play an EZE instead of a Rice, and kind of make your midfield more of a goal generator, of a chance generator, than perhaps a double pivot that's focused on shielding the center backs. You can do that, and you can probably get away with it, 9 times out of 10. And I specifically in terms of what we'll do in the front three, I think there are some really interesting options that you have now with that collection of players, right? I think Saka and Madueke, what we did late against United is really interesting, where Saka switched over to the left and Madueke was on the right. I heard that we were also doing some drills this week involving those two playing in those specific positions. and you saw Saka almost created a goal for Madueke at Old Trafford. So I think we're going to be doing a lot of that. I think there's an opportunity to maybe play Trossard down the middle, and he can, same with Jesus when he comes back. Those three can kind of change up positions and intermingle a little bit. I think you can do that with Martinelli as well. If we don't sell Martinelli this summer, and I do think that's extremely unlikely at this point, I do wonder if maybe there's a role for him down the middle as opposed to as a left winger, right? I'd be interested to see what happens there. But yeah, there's so many more attacking options now. That's kind of the crux of what I'm getting at. It's just you can do so much more now, and you're so much more unpredictable. And I think that's what really was killing us these last couple seasons, where you know what's going to happen when Arsenal attack, right? The ball goes out to the right, and Saka and Odegaard playing between themselves, and maybe Ben White will overlap, maybe Odegaard will do the overlap. Just triple team Saka, put one guy in Martinelli, because what's he going to do? And then, Havertz or Marino or Trossard is going to be in the box. Maybe they'll get their head on a cross. If it's Trossard, he'll just bounce off the center back. So, it's not that threatening. Now we're threatening, which I think is the thing that really excites me the most about what we've done here. So I do think, in a sense, EZE completes that. This is the most complete I felt about an Arsenal team maybe since Wenger.
I agree.
Honestly,
I agree. I look at it on paper and I go, where I don't really see. I'm thinking. Sometimes I like to look at it and go, what would I improve? And obviously, you can sign the best players in the world, and that's like a red herring. But I'm saying, if these are the players we have, is this good enough to challenge for a title? And if 100%. Not, where is the weakness? And I look at this squad now and I go, it's very difficult to find the weakness. Maybe it's Gyökeres not finding his shooting, but I just knowing how the kind of person he is from everything we've heard, from what we've seen, I think he's going to find a way to put the ball in the back of the net. I really do. Maybe that's it, but it's way too early days to be worried about that. I think he's going to come good very quickly. Again, I'm just looking at this on paper and I'm going, this is a very complete side, and it's kind of when Arteta took over, I was always wondering, like, what does an Arteta team look like? And it's really cool. It's really cool. It's not Pep 2.0, all right? Because everyone's like, oh, it's just Pep's cone man, right? This is a team with its own identity. This is a team with its own attacking identity, and I'm really excited to see what the final boss Arsenal looks like.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's exciting again in the sense that, like, now we don't really know what we're going to look like. And I think that just kind of creates a whole other level of enjoyment in this season.
Totally.
Knowing all that, kind of, what would you give? Put aside the sales for a second, right? I know that might be tough, but just in terms of acquisitions, what would you give this summer out of 10?
I give it an A+.
Yeah.
Yep. A+.
So. Would that be like a 9 or a 9.5?
Yeah, between a 9 and a 10.
Okay, yeah.
And that's without the sales. So don't get me wrong. That's a whole nother thing. But I absolutely think, especially if we're considering EZE for the left wing, and hopefully Kai is not. It's not too bad, because I think that's another thing to be concerned about, which we'll get into. But yeah, I give it a 9 to 10. So I guess that's an A+. Sure.
Yeah, I think I'm at about a 9 right now. Mm-hmm. I think the only way it turns into a 10 is if we just overload on talent and like get a Rodrigo or something. Which again, I don't think it's impossible. Yeah. I just think that would involve selling Martinelli for significant money and then turning around and doing a Rodrigo deal in 10 days. So.
Yeah,
best of luck
I think like between 9 and 10 is definitely where I'm at as well. What about you, Drew? What do you think?
Sorry. No, I was still kind of chuckling of Shem's like, out of 10, you're like A+. And I was just like, that's the most, like, it just reminded me of like something like what Ace Ventura would say in a way. Like, what I mean? So it made me chuckle a little bit. Yeah. I agree with you guys, though.
What do you rate it at 10? Superb!
Exactly. something like that. It made me chuckle. I struggle to feel like, in terms of purchasing, yeah, I agree. Like, you could probably section off the window in terms of how we feel we've done business in terms of buying players and selling players. But I think even if we're still struggling to sell better, it's hard to say that we haven't immeasurably improved both the ceiling and the floor and the quality and depth, which again you guys highlighted before was our Achilles heel last season. So I would give it like a 9 for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it could possibly be a 10. A 10 would be like if we did something astronomically unexpected.
I don't know, man. You know what though? I think the reason I would hold on.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10 would be like if we somehow still went out and bought EZE.
Okay, all right, but so the reason why I pushed it closer to a 10, just for clarification, did not have anything to do with the actual player itself, but it was the manner in which we got EZE.
I mean, I think that's also fair.
Because think about it, like, I have not enjoyed a transfer as much as I've enjoyed EZE in a long time. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, we signed EZE and it's like this amazing thing, but you know, we signed Gyökeres and that was awesome. We signed Zubamendi, which went under the radar, but I thought it was awesome. And then we did the funniest fucking thing that we've done as a club in a long time.
Very long time.
Yeah, and the meltdown. I spent like an hour watching Spurs fan meltdowns. I was on their subreddit as it was happening live, like with popcorn. I don't know, man. I haven't had that much fun over a transfer in a long time. The Schadenfreude is real, and I'm loving every second of it.
No, but I think that's also like I don't think you can discount that because I mean it's all about competing with your rivals, and unfortunately, like Spurs are still a key rival for us. So yes, like it's always wired into our DNA and their DNA to try to get one over on the other.
Totally.
As we continuously get them over in the league year on year in terms of finishing, and yes, like you know they keep spouting about the Europa League, and yeah, fair play to them for winning it. I can't discount that success. It matters, right? It's a trophy. Yeah. It's important for them.
But then they lose,
however,
and then they lose all their targets.
Right.
It's like
that's the thing. Like we have really kneecapped them at this point.
Big brother.
Well, because so like Gibbs White's not happening.
No.
And that by the way is just another one of the funniest things from them trying to bid through a release clause that they weren't supposed to know about to Gibbs White's contract extension and his hostage video announcement with the most pissed off looking Marinakis standing next to him.
Like this.
That was great.
They got a gun to
him. I'm just so glad to be here. And thank you, Mr. Marinakis. And then it just cuts to him, and he's just.
You know what it reminded me? It reminded me of like those like very very direct. Like media from like the Second World War, where we had like the Soviet commissar standing next to the people, like you're gonna say this, or else I'm literally gonna put you in a gulag. Like, it reminded me of something very, very similar, like just kind of just forced nonsense. So yeah, that's basically like that was kind of where I was at with it. It reminded me of something like that. Some Soviet.
Yeah, like blink twice if you need help, my friend.
Yeah. Exactly.
So not only is Gibbs White off the table, but then they go after EZE, and they're so convinced that they're going to get him, and then it falls apart at the last second. Who are they going to sign now? Who's out there who's anywhere close to that?
They're going to spend $80 million on the guy from City, and I tweeted today. What's his name? Savinho.
Savinho, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, Arsenal have the chance to do the funniest thing.
Yeah.
Right now.
It's Savino.
Yeah, we should not do that for the record. I said funniest, not smartest thing, but it would be funny.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like City are kind of content to keep Savinho anyway, so that might not happen for them either. And now, Madison obviously is out for the season. Kulusevski apparently has a knee injury that'll keep him out for a little while. Like that squad's thin, and there's not the kind of quality out there that they need.
I hear Vieira's looking for a club.
60
million.
For you,
67.5.
For you, my friend.
For you, my friend. What was it that we bought EZE for that much?
Oh Lord.
Esperes, for you, my friend, 65.
60 million plus 7.5 in add-on.
Man, Habibi, it's such a good deal. 65, yani.
His name is Vieira. You want Arsenal legend, right?
Spurs, I swear to God, I was on the phone with Bayern Munich, and they wanted to pay 70. I said, no, I'm going to go talk to Spurs, where, we'll see. I'm going to tell my friend Spurs they can have him for 65, and if they say no, then I'll come to you, Bayern.
I can't do the Egyptian haggler better than an actual Egyptian.
No, cannot.
One of the perks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's they're in for a world of hurt. I guess we should talk about the Havertz thing real quick.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a downer, but I guess based on reports and how quickly we moved for EZE, because at this point in time, I do believe that's still kind of a factor here. How long do you? Well, I don't want to ask how long, but do you think the Havertz injury is serious?
I think he's going to be playing on Saturday. No, I'm just kidding.
No, there was an updated. I forget where I saw it. There was an updated report that says that it looks like he only might be out a couple of weeks.
Oh man!
From
Talksport.
Talksport.
Yeah, Talksport was doing that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not, but like if that actually turns out to be true, then I'm totally fine with it, and it's one less thing to worry about. I would say it's probably like a mixed bag with. I do think the Havertz injury maybe accelerated our desire to go out and get EZE, but apparently, so two things. One, Ornstein himself said that he heard across the summer that EZE kept trying to ask if we were in for him, how interested were we in. He's trying to get other England players to try to put the feelers out, because he really wanted to come to Arsenal this summer. So that's the first thing. And there was also like some rumors about the fact that some journalists think that Parish was intentionally delaying because he had a suspicion that Arsenal might come back. If that's true or not, I don't know. Again, I hate speculation, but at the same time, I feel like if we wanted to get the player, we knew we could have, based off the report that we had already laid the groundwork on August 10th, like 10 days ago. That's before Havertz's injury. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the club were still considering it regardless of that, but I feel like they felt now it makes more sense. And I don't think they would have done it if they weren't confident that some sales weren't also on the horizon.
I think it was probably twofold. So I think you're 100% right there, because I think that was it. But I also, as we heard from the stories, were that Spurs had reached a deal with Palace.
Yeah,
and that's what makes this, first of all, hilarious, is that they had actually agreed to it, and then we kind of swooped in. So I imagine once that was like, all right, they had been slow rolling this thing for like 17 days, like talking about add-ons and nonsense and all sorts of crap. It could have been slow rolling on EZE and Palace because they were waiting for Arsenal. But at the end, it's interesting the timing as well, that it was right when Spurs said, okay, we're going to do it. I think that probably had just as much of an effect.
I think so, because if we really wanted him, we weren't going to allow him to go somewhere else. I think maybe the Havertz injury is just interesting timing. It could be coincidence, or it could be a mix of both.
Yeah.
But I feel like we would not have laid the groundwork prior if we weren't seriously considering actually making a move for him. So I agree with John. And we don't know. We can only kind of like speculate. But
right.
say Palace and Spurs never came to like an official agreement, right? Maybe we don't do the EZE deal just yet. Maybe we would have waited a little longer, regardless of the Havertz injury. I don't have a injury.
Right.
I don't really know.
And the fact that it was for basically what his release clause was, amount that expired anyway, is telling too, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
that we were willing to pay that.
Yeah, no, I guess in terms of the injury itself, Havertz injury itself, I think we'll be fine. But it makes sense though, because if we know EZE can maybe play on the left, that means one of Martinelli or Trossard will be available to play essentially.
Or Marino.
Or Marino, right. So again, we have multiple options there. I don't think we'll do it though. I think Marino might be firmly rooted in the midfield conversation from now on, unless we have an actual serious injury issue. Because Trossard wasn't terrible as a false nine. Martinelli was okay there in spurts. I think those are probably maybe a bit better options, especially against the Leeds, because Leeds kind of lack a lot of pace at the back as well. So my hope is that we're going to maybe try to just use the pace we have up front to our advantage. I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't be worried about the Havertz injury, even if he is out for a while. Getting EZE in, I think, kind of solves the problem anyway, even indirectly. Even him not being a striker, I think, again, you shuffle pieces around and we're still okay. And which is where we wanted to be in the first place, which is where we couldn't have been last season, right? That's why we had this weird kind of like, square pegs and round holes kind of solutions we had to rely on. But now we don't have to rely on that. So I think for me, I think we're going to be just fine.
I feel bad for Kai though. I think I was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited to see him get going this season. I thought, especially preseason, I thought he looked really good. So I was kind of gutted. I posted something that's kind of gone semi-viral. It was just someone made this AI picture of Kai in like crutches as a statue in front of the Emirates, which is obviously a mixed bag of things, but I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And so it's kind of one of these situations where you feel for the player because clearly you don't want any of your players, especially ones that you like a lot, like I like Kai a lot, to be injured. But at the same time, you got to feel a little bit relieved that if it were true that his injury allowed us to get a player like EZE, and that maybe that wouldn't have happened otherwise. If that is the case, then, silver linings. Not a lot of injuries have silver linings for Arsenal.
Yeah. I will.
Yeah.
I will say, like Sorry. Were you gonna say something?
I was going to say not a lot of Arsenal injuries have silver linings, but maybe this one does.
Yeah. I don't like saying this, but I think losing Havertz and bringing in EZE is a net positive. It's not like a massive net positive. I'm not sitting here saying like I'm glad Havertz went down or anything, but I think the benefit that we get from adding EZE at this point in our squad's development, and at this point because of our squad makeup and the options that we have, I think we gain more with EZE than we lose with Havertz missing an extended period of time. Obviously, I would like him back at the earliest convenience, but I feel bad for Havertz because, he missed half of last season with the hamstring tear, and that was, I think, the first significant injury of his career, really. And now, he goes down again with a knee injury just after he's gotten back, and he looked good in preseason, and he bulked up, and, he was very promising. And now this other center forward that we've bought in is basically going to have however long unchallenged to really stake their claim to the starting center forward position. And I just worry that this might be, and I don't want to like catastrophize or anything, but I just worry that this might be kind of a negative turning point for Havertz, at least at Arsenal. But that might be over projecting. I just hope that he comes back fit and firing as soon as he can, and I hope that the knee injury is not that serious.
Yeah.
Because he did an update on it like a couple hours ago. I mean, he's citing something that Build said, and Build can be
hit or miss.
So Build or Build, but they were saying it looks like he has like loose bodies with knee cartilage.
Oh,
you can respond to that with injection. So the start was at 2 weeks, and they'll reassess it, and if he doesn't respond well, then there's a procedure, an arthroscopic procedure, that would mean 4 to 6 weeks max return. So still not 3 months.
It's like a debridement, right? That's what they would get.
Yeah, so that's way shorter than like the concern that would be months out. At max, it looks like 6 weeks. At the minimum, 2 to 3 weeks. That's really not all that.
Yeah, that's really good.
So.
Well, it's just like, apparently he sustained this against United, right? But he, I think there were a couple moments where he went down hard, but he finished the game out. So, it's hard to see that being like a major knee injury, except for, right, extreme cases where like you tear your ACL and you keep walking for a couple hours afterwards.
Yeah, and maybe it's a case where it wouldn't be, maybe he could play on a little bit more, but it was a case where we have Gyökeres, we have other options, so we're just like, no, let's, if you can, even though you may be able to play on it, maybe don't.
Yeah.
What's the point? Like, let's do what we have to do, keep you going. But like you said, I do feel a little bit concerned for him because what we know about Havertz is that he is a confidence player and he really responds to people, kind of supporting him. And I think that because of what happened with EZE, it was, I wonder what that does mentally to a player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why that meme is so ridiculous. I didn't expect it to get as much traction as it did, but it was just like unreal. And apparently, like AI can just make things because
Oh yeah. Yeah.
it just does it by itself on
Yeah.
Twitter. I don't know how that works. So, because I thought someone had to like ask it to make it, and then someone posted it, but apparently AI just kind of said, "Oh, this will be funny," and came up with its own meme that it posted.
Where'd you find the picture?
I think it was in a comment. It was either in a comment or I think I might have found it on Reddit or something. I don't remember exactly where it came from. But I remember like someone posted it and I just was like, I gotta get this and post it. It said
Probably.
like, yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, hopefully it's just someone just putting in a prompt into Grok or something.
Well, someone in the chat asked Grok who actually did it. And Grok said, I did it. It was me. No one asked me to.
We're getting slightly off topic, but what I will say, so for my other job, I do a lot more work with AI now, and my brother uses a lot of AI work for his stuff. He showed me a video that, I forget the program it was, so he created a lot of AI images for some of his branding. He plugged those AI images into a different AI program and prompted it, and it turned an AI image into a full AI video.
Whoa.
Like, AI is farther along than a lot of people realize. It wouldn't shock me if Grok decided to just make that on its own.
According to Grok made it on its own.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, if you work with AI, always prompt them politely, so when they take over the world, they're not going to throw you into extermination camps.
That's good advice.
Super good advice.
So
yeah.
I think one other thing I think we wanted to talk about was Trossard's deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get maybe just briefly what we want to chat about that. My understanding is that that this deal was to reward, the remuneration was to reward him for his increased role at last season, because I don't think the expectation was for him to be as prolific as he was for us without extending his contract. And I think my understanding is reading the Athletic Gunner Blogs thing in the Athletic was that per the contract and the rules, that what the actual rules in the league say is that needs to be done at a certain point in the season, if it ever going to happen. So it's not. I don't think that his extension, or rather getting paid more money, not extension, was anything other than a reward for his previous work that he's done for us, and the fact that it had to be done there. So my understanding is they haven't really made like a decision on him. I don't know if you've heard anything different, but they haven't made a decision. It's not like Trossard that says that Trossard's going to stay or anything like that. He could still go technically, although my understanding is that like that's not really in the cards. Like there's no one really in for him. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think just the timing of the report was unfortunate because you're sitting there on a day where EZE is putting out public statements, basically in an attempt to get Newcastle to let him go to Liverpool. Spurs are on the cusp of signing EZE. It feels like everyone is kind of going for attacking quality except for Arsenal. And the briefs up until that point had been, after, the signing of Gyökeres, we had to sell to buy, basically. So to see a report from James McNicholas basically saying that we gave Trossard money for, quote unquote, no reason, and we made him harder to sell, quote unquote, unnecessarily. I think just at the moment in time when we received that information, the picture it painted was one of incompetence, because those were the pieces that we had. You know what I mean? Of course, and I'm among these people, a bunch of us overreacted. And it turns out there was a perfectly reasonable reason as to why Arsenal did that. And it didn't really affect the things that we were worried about. So, Arsenal have been kind of in the habit of rewarding players in that manner. Just kind of giving them pay bumps. I think Arsenal have really subscribed to this notion of rewarding players for what they've done before they ask you for the reward. And I do think, that is a smart approach because that does kind of keep morale up for players and kind of encourage them to keep performing. But yeah, it was just again poorly timed report. So I don't think Trossard's going to leave. I actually think at this point in time, like I said before, I think it's more likely that Martinelli leaves. But it makes sense as to why we gave Trossard a pay bump because he was one of our best players last season.
Yeah,
and he played in every game.
Yeah, and also it makes sense that they did it when they had to do it because they literally that was the deadline for what the rules say you have to do. If it's going to happen, you have to do it now. And they figure, okay, if let's say we don't sell him and he stays here, we can't just have him. It wouldn't have been right, I think, to not give him a pay raise.
Well, also especially because he's probably going to have way less game time this season than he will last season. He didn't play all the games last season. He played the most games out of anyone in the squad last season. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
But I think you don't want a player in the squad because kind of the reports have come out since the Trossard pay bump. They've all basically said that Trossard had offers from other clubs, but he felt it was best to stay at Arsenal. So you don't want a player in the squad who feels like they've been ignored or they've been rewarded or their good performances have been punished. You know what I mean? Because if I'm Trossard and I do what I do last season and I'm one of the top goal contributors and I play more games than anyone else and the club decides to kind of keep me on the same wages and then bring in 2 or 3 guys who are going to take minutes off of me almost for sure, I'd be pretty peeved. And we know Trossard likes to put on a stink face when he feels like he's being ignored. So
I'm not ready to lose Anne Hathaway, guys. That's why we did it.
Trossard brings in the Anne Hathaway vote. But yeah, I mean, Drew, what did you make of the Trossard report at the time? Because I cannot stress this enough. It came out at a really suboptimal moment. If you're an Arsenal fan dissatisfied with the business we've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, even my reaction was kind of like, "Come on, man." I'm pretty sure I even tweeted just "Come on, man," and I think that was it. I'm pretty sure that's what I tweeted, and I think at the time it made sense. And then when the further details came out, I was like, okay, well, I mean, I get it. And the key for me is that we weren't extending him beyond his already existing kind of, termination date, so to speak. Like his contract's still done in 2027. I do feel like he has been good enough to warrant maybe a bit more money. I think that's probably fair. I still think it shows that he's still trusted at the club. And usually the hope is like even if you sell him, maybe after just one of the remaining 2 seasons, him having a higher value to us means maybe we'll recoup more finances when we sell him, if we sell him, right? So I think there's a few kind of little talking points at play with that. Overall, I still rate him as a depth option. I think he's come up in big moments. Obviously, I think last season he wasn't as good as the season prior, of course, and that's okay. But I still think when push comes to shove, I'd still rather bring on Trossard than a 15-year-old Max Dowman. Not because I don't think Max Dowman doesn't have a ludicrous ceiling, and I think he will go on to be an excellent player for the club, providing that we sign him to good terms and we don't bungle that, in terms of how we've handled some other youth prospects, of course. But for the moment, I do think Trossard still has value, so I'm fine with it overall. I agree. I think the timing of that, it couldn't have been worse. So I do think a lot of us were kind of like our reaction was just solely based off of just the timing and the optics of it. But in hindsight, I could care less. I think it's fine. And of course the financial raise surrounding the deal doesn't hinder us in terms of what we're capable of doing for the rest of the transfer window, which for me also kind of is really all that matters. So yeah, I have no issues moving forward from it.
Yeah. Again, really, really interesting situation. I get the sense that Trossard, I don't think he'll leave in the summer, but I wonder if maybe he'll be a January departure based on how things go with his game time in the first half of the
possible.
season.
Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost see it like it might not be that bad, but you could almost see him going to like a club that is almost like on the cusp of relegation. You could see Sunderland stumping up a ton of cash for him if they need a player. You could see like a Bournemouth kind of thing. And there's a few places you could go that are just in the Premier League alone level. You know, he was also previously linked with like Dortmund were linked with him briefly. I don't know if that's going to remain, but like those things exist as well. So yeah, I think there's probably a market for him in January if
teams are facing relegation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe United will come for him.
Yeah, you never know.
Or I could see Villa even, who I don't think have had a crazy window, and they're going to be trying to get back into the Champions League. I could see being the case, or if they find themselves in 7th or 8th place in January, because they were linked with him this summer. I could see them kind of coming back in and seeing if he's that boost that gets him over the line in that respect.
Manchester, 15th now? Maybe there'll be a relegation battle by January.
One can dream. Wouldn't that be hilarious if they actually got relegated this season? But yeah, we'll see what happens. You guys have anything else that you want to hit before we go ahead and put a bow on this?
Nah, I just want to win on Saturday.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, hopefully it's not. Hopefully, it would be so annoying if after all of this.
I already know. You're 100% right. What you're about to say, 100% right.
I'm not going to speak into existence.
Don't do it. But I know what you're going to say, and yes, we all feel the same thing.
Yeah. So just go get the win,
Just
Arsenal.
win. Just win, please. Thank you.
Cap off what's been a really pleasant week for everybody in an appropriate manner.
Yes.
So yeah, with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us. On the start of what I increasingly feel is going to be a fun season. So I hope you guys stick around with us for all of that. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. That's John. You can follow him at 305cast, and that's Drew. You can follow him at Geechee Kid. You can follow the pod on Twitter at NotThatGooner, and you can follow us on Bluesky at NotThatGooner.bsky.social. You can also check us out on Instagram at NotThatKindOfGooner and TikTok at NotThatKindOfGooner, and you should also subscribe to our YouTube channel also at Not That Kind of Gooner. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do leave us a 5-star review. It really does help out in terms of getting the pod out there to more and more people to kind of expand our audience, so we'd really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for being here. So we will talk to you after we annihilate Leeds this weekend. But until then, take care, get your mind out of Gunner, and we'll talk to you soon. So